Hi everyone, and welcome back to our new episode. We are the True Crime Sisters, the ones who does the research and all the hard work, and then the one who records and uploads it. Before we start on today's horror, we want to remind you that this is a true crime episode, so we will be discussing poison and death today. If this is not for you, then please stop listening now. Today we will be talking about Graham Young, who was convicted of killing 2 people and poisoning a lot more. Graham Young was known as the Teacup Killer, was born on September 7th in 1947 in England. Already as a child has experienced hard times. His mother Molly died when he was just 14 weeks old. Tuberculosis, pleurisy. His father sent him to live with his aunt and uncle, while his sister Winfred went to stay with their grandparents. It was not until his father, Frederick, met and married Molly. And yes, his second wife was also called Molly. Graham started his fascination with poison at a very young age. He would start reading what he could find and start reading about the Nazi Germany. Hitler and William Poller. William Poller was another poisoner who lived and died in England. He was convicted of murder in 1855 for killing his friend John Cook, who was hanged in public for his crime. He was also suspected of poisoning of a large amount of people, including his brother, his mother-in-law, and 4 of his children. All 4 of these kids died before their first birthday. When Graham was just a young teen, he managed to buy poison from a chemist who thought he was a lot older than he was. When the chemist asked him about his intention, Graham started talking about the poison and so on, and the chemist thought he must be a lot older than his 12-13-year-old. And when Graham has to sign for this poison, he signed with the name M.E. Evans. He used this to poison his family and a few of his school friends. His stepmother, Molly, started getting sick in February. She was vomiting, had diarrhea, and extreme stomach pains. Then his father started getting the same symptoms, and he thought it was a stomach bug. This summer, his sister also got sick several times, and even Graham got sick at one stage. It was on the 21st of April, on Easter Sunday, that his stepmother Molly died. They said it was prolapsed cervical disc. Graham suggested to his father that they should cremate the body, and his father agreed. So when Graham told the police years later that he killed her, there was no way of proving it. During the funeral of Molly, he also poisoned another relative. It seems this was just because he could. It served no further purpose. After the funeral, his father also got sick and he had been sent to the hospital. After several tests, they found anatomy poison in his system and told him that one more dose would have killed him. Now everyone was getting suspicious of Graham, as most of the family knew about his fascination with poison. There was also a time when he poisoned his sister's morning cup of tea. She was on the train on her way to work when she started getting hallucination and had to go to the hospital. There they found the poison Atrop belladonna. Now, after this incident, his father decided to have a word with Graham. He asked why would he poison his sister, and Graham answered that it was not his fault. It was his sister who used the cup to mix shampoo in, and that's why she got sick. He didn't entirely believe him, but told him to stop using household items in his experiments and be more careful with his chemicals. It was also during this time one of his school friends, Chris William, also got sick and started vomiting and with stomach pains. Sadly, one of the teachers started getting very suspicious and mentioned it to the police. He had found bottles of poison in Graham's things at school, and the teacher and the headmaster informed the police. They set up a trap to catch Graham at school, where they used a psychiatrist to pretend to talk to Graham about his career and what he wanted to do when he grew up. The psychiatrist then informed the police about the talk they had with Graham and had an extensive knowledge on poison and the effects of the poison. He was arrested when he came home from school in May 1962. At the age of 14, he was arrested and charged with poisoning of his father, his sister, and his friend Chris Williams. He also admitted to poisoning his stepmother, Molly, but as she was dead and the body was cremated, they could not investigate. he was sentenced to spend his time in Broadmoor Hospital in England. This is because they concluded that he was not mentally ill, but had a psychopathic disorder and his brain had not been able to develop properly. The psychiatrist also told the court that Graham would be very likely to be a re-offender if he was released. Graham Young was admitted to the hospital at the age of 14. This made him the youngest ever inmate at the hospital. But he did not stop poisoning because of this. It takes a lot more to stop Mr. Young. He continued to read about his favorite subjects and read everything he could find in the hospital library. He also continued to his fascination on Hitler and the Second World War. They said that he also grew a mini mustache to look like Hitler. During his time there, he is believed to have killed another inmate with cyanide. You can make cyanide poison with laurel leaves, and there was plenty of those in the hospital garden, but nothing could ever be proven. There was a nurse with the poison tea. There was a package of missing sugar, soap found in the teapot. During his time there, he also applied for early release, but at the first hearing, his father told the room if he was released, no one in the family would come near him, and he would have nowhere to go. He also said his son would never be released from the hospital. In 1970, he tried again. He had now spent 8 years at Broadmoor, and this time the psychiatrist had a few more positive things to say about him. He mentioned in a letter to the Home Secretary, Graham was no longer a danger to others, and he had stopped his obsession of poison. However, it would be another 7 years until he was finally released. As soon as he got out, he continued his fascination for poisoning. He got a job as a shopkeeper at a factory at Hertfordshire. Here, he would often make tea for his colleagues. It was not long until they started getting sick. Eventually, 2 of them died, and everyone thought it was some sort of bug going around. But of course, Mr. Young couldn't keep his mouth shut and started telling everyone about the several types of poison that could be used to make them sick, and so on. Can you imagine having your friends at work die, and then this new guy shows up, started talking about poison? I would get suspicious too. Of course, his behavior got to the police attention, and when they searched his home, they found poison and his diary. It was in 1972 when he was convicted of 2 accounts of attempted murder, 4 counts of administrating poison with the intention of cause of grievous bodily harm, and 2 counts of murder. His was filled with drama, and because he pleaded not guilty, there was no one willing to represent him, so the trial had to be postponed several times. When he finally got a defendant, there was 75 who witnessed again him, and only Graham had to speak for his defense. They also read his diary out loud in court, but this time Graham claims that it was a work of fiction. But his defense did not work, and he was sentenced to life in prison and died of a heart attack in the prison in 1990. Thank you all guys for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.